Well, here we are, episode 1. So it can only get better from after this one, right? Here we are in the studio. I'm very excited about this. I've got Pinky on my lap. I've got Tempest over there. So let's hope they behave. I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can. I don't want to ramble on. I am a rambler. I like to go on and on and on. But I guess that's what happens when you start talking about things that are really, really passionate. And fitness, wellness, helping people feel healthier is my jam. And I really hope that these episodes leave people feeling more motivated, more inspired. And at the end of the day, I just want people to feel happier. And when we can take care of ourselves, I really feel like this does truly bring happiness to people. So episode 1, I want to talk about how I have evolved as a trainer over the last 30 years. I can't even believe that it has been 30 years. I mean, I remember to this day the minute that I started my career and how impactful and how incredibly excited I was to even back then gosh, I don't even know how old I was, in the middle of my kinesiology degree, so excited to really make an impact and a difference on people's lives, because I truly, even at that young age of 21, 22, I knew that I had the ability to connect and inspire people. But I have to say, over the last 30 years, I have completely changed my outlook, my philosophies, the way I train people, like 360 degree change. And I wanted to talk today about those differences and what kind of made me change my philosophies and why. And through my experiences, literally, education is great, certifications are great, but through my experiences of not just training clients, but my own personal experiences, I have really realized how important it is to continue to evolve and change and open your experiences and your learning up, because it just makes you that much better. You're always a great trainer when you start because you're eager, but as you evolve and as you gain these experiences through connecting with people, you really do become a very strong, well-knowledge trainer. So that is my goal today, is to kind of explain where I started, how I evolved, and how my philosophies have changed, and where I am to this day at age 47, still doing what I love. So I started my career very early. I walked into the Talisman Center with at the time, my boyfriend. He was an avid football player and he loved fitness. And I was like literally 17 years old, super young. He brought me into, back then it was called Lindsay Park Sports Center. It's now Repsol Center. It was called the Talisman Center for a couple of years. And I did spend almost half of my career training people in that facility. It was an incredible experience. And to this day, it's probably my favorite place to work out when I do come to Calgary. It's just got everything. The humidity in the winter is awesome. The summer, not so much. But the roof at the Repsol Center is awesome for winter training because it just keeps everything a little bit moist and more warm. And in Calgary, it is cold and dry. So I always loved the Repsol Center for that. Okay, so how I started. I was using that facility, loved the energy, loved the people, loved how there were so many different ages, different body types, different genders. Everyone under the moon was there working out. And I loved how everyone embraced everyone. It was a very welcoming atmosphere. I didn't realize how incredible that energy and that welcoming experience was, as it did change my views. My views did change quite a bit as I progressed into my career, going from gym to gym. But the Talisman at that time, I'm going to just call it the Talisman Center because I spent most of my time when I did, it was called that most of the time. It's probably what's going to come out of my mouth the most often. Is just how incredible that place was. And I knew that I wanted to spend as much time as I possibly could there. I went to the gym because I loved it. There were certain boys that I wanted to see. It really was more about the social aspect for me when I first started going there. I was really, happy with how I looked, happy with how I moved. I was always very into dancing and gymnastics. My parents, throughout my whole life, always had me being active and participating in sports and being out in the outdoors, etc. So I always had that instinct to take care of myself and be active. But I did go to the Talisman Center more just for the people and the energy. It just was my happy place. A couple years into my degree, I was approached by an independent company that was using space at the Talisman Center to start some group training. And that's literally how my job and my profession started. Is I was approached and I jumped on the opportunity. 2 years into my kinesiology degree, started training. I had some incredible people that I was able to learn from, aspire to. Obviously had been doing this for quite a long time, and I really was well connected with the right people. They really took me under their wing and really supported me through my first few years. Once I finished up my degree, I would say I was probably the busiest trainer at the Talisman Center. I learned very early that the Talisman Center was more a stage. And so if you wanted to be very successful at being a trainer, you had to make sure that you were conducting yourself appropriately on the gym floor, because people were constantly watching, seeing you interact, seeing how your clients were progressing, getting stronger, if you seemed like you were interested. And I knew, obviously, I was genuinely interested. I think that's what has gotten me to where I am now. But I think it's important for other people to see that you indeed do have a strong connection with the people that you are trying to help. So I was busy 4 years, actually, even after 1 year of training, I was full busy. And, I was a typical trainer back then. Like, keep in mind, this is a 30-year difference. We were very much into the sweating, the working hard. Certain types of foods were discouraged. It was just our philosophies. Breakfast, never skip breakfast. That is the most important meal of the day. And for many years, I would talk about metabolism. It was all about metabolism. And we did not want the metabolism to slow down ever. And so how we made sure that the metabolism never slowed down was cardio, obviously proper sleep, which obviously now to this day, I still believe that philosophy. Drinking your water, which again, I still encourage, and consistent meals. Never, ever, ever do you go hungry, ever. And in fact, the minute you feel hungry, you should be panic stricken and you should be fueling with good, nutritious food, probably avoiding certain types of foods. I would absolutely have been a trainer back then about really dialing into being very, very consistent, but also very, very disciplined. And this is the word that I've changed a lot. And that's not, it's the deprivation, right? Us as trainers, even now to this day, we want our clients to succeed. We need for them to have results. This is not something that is not expensive. It costs money. It's a big investment, not just financially, but emotionally. And so it is very important that we get results for our clients. And so we did, and we still do to this day, whatever it takes to get that result. And what I learned through that kind of very strict mentality of getting your cardio in, not skipping the breakfast, regular consistent meals throughout the day, 3 good meals, probably some snacks in the middle, was that, yes, there was absolutely the result. The results were happening quickly. I looked great as a trainer. My clients were happy. But what I learned at the long run is that the longevity and being able to sustain that type of recommendation that I would be placing on my clients was a little bit out of reach. And sometimes we would slip back quite a bit. And so very early on in my career, I realized that I needed to figure out a more balanced approach, or I was probably not going to be able to sustain the client or keep the client training with me. Ultimately, we want the clients to stay as long as we can. And if you're getting results, they stay. If you're not, they move on. So at very early in my career, I realized that there was probably some adjustments that I needed to make, but I just didn't know exactly at this time what I needed to do. couple years went by and I was approached genetically. I've been always very lucky putting muscle on. If any of you have seen my dad, although he is almost 75 now, he's a fit looking guy. He always has been that way. He's strong. He's got the big legs. And genetically, I was very lucky. I picked up on and I got his genetics. And so I was able to put on muscle quite quickly. And I was approached quite early on. I would say probably 3 or 4 years into my career, you should compete. You have the body, you put the muscle on quickly. This will help your career. Of course, hearing that was, music to my ears. So I said, sure, I always was up for the challenge. And that was, I have to say, a turning point in my career. And not so much for the best. Now, I am not going to sit here and criticize the bodybuilding world. It has changed, first of all, significantly over the last 25 years. Back then, it was a diet of 5 months. I was on the most restricted diet that you can only imagine. I was absolutely shredded by the end of the 5 months. I lost my period after 1 month of dieting, which means I was below 10% probably very, very quickly. Through that experience, it was the best learning experience for me because it did completely change my philosophies. Not so much for the better, but as I progressed and continued on, if I had not gone through those experiences, I definitely would not have the same approach now, 25 years later. So no dairy. Basically, this is what I was able to eat. I was able to eat vegetables. Everything was weighed. Everything was portioned. I basically weighed myself twice a day because I had to make weight at night. What I realized is that through that experience is water is actually the determining factor, the biggest determining factor of what that number is on the scale. Because literally I was eating chicken, tuna, vegetables, a little rice. They took some of the rice out as I stopped losing the weight or plateaued. And I literally the calories were going down, down, down. But my cardio was something that was the most important thing. So got up, did my hour and a half of cardio. As I began to deplete more in calories, my energy obviously was down, and the whole concept the whole information or the thing that was being pushed through the coach that I had hired was don't really worry so much about what muscle you're putting on over the next 5 months, because you're in such a deficit calorie-wise that you're probably not going to be able to do much in the gym either. And so even though I was pretty young, that was a bit of a red flag for me and thinking, wow, is this the healthiest thing that I'm going to do? I then also, through that experience, was told and warned about the weight gain following the diet. And because of my profession, because I, of course, pay so much attention to the way I look, back then, I was obviously adamant. There's no way. Of course, I'm going to start incorporating healthier foods like dairy and fruit back into my life, but there's no way I'm going to lose control over my eating after this. I'm a disciplined person and I'm vain enough that I will be able to take control. Well, that actually was not true. After being so deprived for so long, the competition was great. It was a great opportunity. Of course, I wanted to quit several times. It was my dad that said, Tish, you're not a quitter. You never have quit. If you quit, now you'll look back and always be dissatisfied and disappointed in yourself. So just keep going, finish, and just never do it again. And so, of course, I took on his recommendations, kept going, finished it, placed third out of 20 people, which was pretty good, and then wanted to carry on with my life. So excited. What I learned through that deprivation of 5 months is that it doesn't matter how disciplined or how hard you do not want to go back or gain any of that weight because you want to prove people wrong. I was constantly being warned about it, and I saw it from my own eyes working at the Towson Center. I saw what was happening to these competitors. They have the off season and the on season. And what I learned is that vicious cycle is something that they do. I guess I shouldn't speak for them, but for me, and from some of the competitors that I've spoken to over the years, it's that they just can't get the control back into their life. So they get back on the diet, and that gets them back into a more comfortable sense of comfort, right? They're more comfortable in their own skin. And I just could not control my cravings. I couldn't control the amount of food that was coming in when you have been deprived for that long. And it really does take away your social activity. You can't even put cream in your coffee, no dairy for 5 months. And I know, again, bodybuilding world is much different now. But again, I'm just going through my own experiences and what they have done to me to change my perspectives. And I learned through that experience that when you go through periods of such deprivation and such restriction, as soon as you're given the opportunity to have a little more flexibility in your life, you take it. It doesn't matter how disciplined you think you are. Just naturally, you need to kind of let it go. And so it happened to me. I did gain unwanted body fat. I didn't fit into any of my clothes for probably close to a year. I literally wore I remember scrubs. I must have been training a doctor or something, and they gave me scrubs, and I literally wore those pants and a sweatshirt for about a year because I refused to buy anything bigger because I knew this was temporary. I went to the doctor because I really had, after a month or so of really binging a lot, I was still gaining weight. I was still feeling terrible. I nipped it in the bud a little bit, quite a bit actually. And I went to the doctor, and he said to me, Tish, you have put your body through quite a lot. And so in order for it to come back and trust you, these were his words, you need to stop overtraining. You need to give your body a rest, and you need to just start eating like a normal human being again, and be patient and allow your body to trust you again. And I took that advice because really it was the only person I trusted at the time. And eventually, after about a year, my body did kind of balance itself out, and I was able to just naturally get back to the way I was. But that learning experience of going through such deprivation, such discipline for so long, and then given some freedom, and also the extra cardio and the ability not to lift. It was one of those experiences, like, I liked it, but it would not be a realm that I would be diving into again. And I later on actually did do one more competition. I did one, about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Different approach, different experience, but still it was just a little bit too much about the vanity rather than what the body is able to do. And through that bodybuilding experience, I was starting to open my mind more to what else is more important in this industry, and what should I, as a profession in this industry, be pushing? Because as I was training and as I was leaning out, the veins start coming out, the six-pack is popping. I was the busiest trainer in the facility. And that was a bit of a red flag and a worry to me. Why am I now, because I'm so ripped, such a popular trainer? And that was a concern for me because I was still educated. I was getting more experience, yes, but it was the actual physicality of what I looked like that was creating my business to grow. And that really didn't sit well with me at all. Not even in the slightest. So that was the turning point for me, is like, I want to start figuring out how we can find balance in our life, find a lifestyle that's going to be long-term, but also be happy in our own skin. And that is a very, very tricky thing to do because we're all starting and stopping. We all have things that happen in our lives, and the consistency goes down and interruptions happen. And so it is not as easy as black and white. And I realized very quickly that I had to figure out more of gray options and teach these options and these outlooks and suggestions to my clients. I needed them to become more open-minded to giving themselves a little bit more slack, creating a little bit more permission to take some time off and know that it's a lifelong process. And through all the experiences of training with my clients, that was going to start being my number one thing, is let's find something that you can sustain for the rest of your life. And if you can sustain it and be happy with the way you look and maintain this balanced lifestyle, then we've got it. And if you cannot, then we need to stop what you're doing, communicate, figure out new goals, figure out new strategies, and go from there. And literally, my style and my type of client changed. I no longer wanted to train the person that wanted to look a certain way. I wanted to train the person who wanted to live a better life. And in my next episode, I'm going to talk about the impact of training certain types of people and how that was a game changer for me. But my shift in who I started to train and who I began to attract due to the way I approached things completely changed. And my clients were way more rewarding and way more fun. You know, when you stop focusing on the exterior and you realize what's happening in the interior and watching the body move more efficiently, naturally those exterior things happen. But when you start focusing more on what's going on in the inside and feeling better about that, people stick with things more long term. And I started picking up and realizing that is the person that I wanted to A, become as a trainer, and B, have the opportunity to train that type of person, because you attract your style of training. Quick story, this kind of makes me laugh, because I realized that when someone hires you, you have an impact on them more so than you realize. This was when our big cardio, phase, me and my friends, we were all about like going outside, getting the hour and a half of cardio, running the hills, sweating, dying. That was our mentality. I taught a fitness class that did involve some weight training, and I thought, hey, that's probably good enough. It was just all experiences and all, me learning was what really changed my outlook and my perspectives on this. And we finished our run, and then afterwards she said, let's go to Earl's and grab something to eat. We deserve it. It was Saturday. I said, sure, let's do it. So we went to Earl's, sat down. She ordered a glass of wine and a pizza with, it looked delicious, prawns, pesto, cheese, a couple of types of cheese and olive oil and garlic. And I ordered a salad with dressing on the side and no cheese and a glass of water. And I remember sitting there thinking, I wish that I could order that and enjoy it. She was like loving it. And I was still enjoying my salad, enjoying her company. But that type of food was just a complete forbidden approach for me. This was obviously in the year of the bodybuilding stage in my life. I just really looked at food and certain types of food as being completely forbidden. And I remember us talking about fitness and wellness. It was basically what we all talked about. Obviously, friends attract like-minded friends. And she said to me, I just wouldn't mind getting rid of some of my thighs. That's the only part of my body that I'm not happy with. And I turned to her and I looked her deep in her eyes and I said, well, it's not going to happen if you continue to eat like that. And back then I just brushed it off and I had no idea what of an impact that comment made for her. Several years later, we were, at a wedding, I think actually her wedding. And she sat down and she said to me, for a year after that, I never had a pizza and I very rarely even had a glass of wine. It affected me so much. And I just sat there in I was stunned that I had actually influenced that in her that much. And I realized that as a trainer and having clients, I really needed to be very careful on how my message, I had to be careful with what I was educating and the information that I was spreading out there. I had to make sure I was careful because I didn't feel so good after hearing that. And we joked about it, but that was significant. That was a huge moment for me, and that I had to be very careful about what my message was, because I didn't, and at that time when she brought it up, I had realized that eating pizza was actually not a bad thing, but back then pizza was forbidden. And I always was happy with my body. I always loved it. I was lean. I was a very popular trainer. I loved living my life. I loved the discipline. But I was always too judgmental, looking down upon people who, wouldn't make healthy choices. And I just shake my head now and think, what was I thinking? And then I moved to Europe. I needed a break. I had an opportunity to go for as long or as little as I wanted, and I went. And this was in my late 20s, early 30s, flying into Switzerland, so excited, but thinking on the plane, I hope that there's a place that I'm going to be able to have my salad, and I hope that the gyms are going to be okay. And that was seriously what my biggest concern was, because it was it was almost like an obsession for me. But the moment I stepped off the plane, I felt like I was on a holiday, and my mindset almost instantly changed. I think I needed a change of scenery. I think I needed a break. I think I needed to be out of that fitness world for just some time to reevaluate really what's important in life. And through my experiences living in Switzerland, I have to say, again, a huge impact. I noticed, first of all, there was no overweight people there in Switzerland. No one. I mean, they weren't the fittest looking, like they weren't like the bulky fit guys that you see in the gym, because of course I did join a gym, but no overweight. No one looked like they were overeating at all. And I would go to cafes. First of all, I couldn't find salad like anywhere. I literally would have to go to the grocery store, buy the vegetables, cut the vegetables, make the salad. There was no like community health food where you could go and stock your own salad and pay $30. Nope. I was going back to the basics, but the salad thing was a huge thing for me. So I started doing that. But I also would go for lunch, and there was just not a lot of healthy options. It would frustrate me. But again, I paid attention to what was happening around me, and people were enjoying things, but everything was in a smaller portion. Every single thing was smaller portioned. I went to Paris for Fashion Week. I was sitting in the little cafe drinking my cappuccino, which was this little, not this big. And I ordered a croissant, and instead of it being this big, it literally was this big. And by then I had been there for a couple of months. I definitely had put on some, unwanted body fat, but I was enjoying myself. I still felt like I was on a holiday. And I wasn't a trainer, so no one was judging me or looking at me. I just was just me. And I was still working out every day, actually better than ever before, getting some really good lifts in each and every day, walking to and from the gym, and just eating more variety, putting things in my body that I never would. But because of their approach to eating, I never overate. I watched a very famous supermodel walk into that cafe that day in Paris. And she literally ordered the exact same thing I did. Little croissant, cappuccino. And then she put about 3 teaspoons of sugar in hers. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is she doing? She sat there, and I noticed how mindful she was. This is obviously a treat for her, but I could tell she was loving it. And literally the people were coming in and ordering treat after treat after treat. And everyone looked so healthy, happy, and balanced. It was all about the portions. And I remember sitting at the cafe that moment and going, wow, it's actually not what you eat. It's actually how much you eat. And once I figured out the differences in how North Americans perceive food, we are so fixated on what we're eating here in this world, in North America, versus places like Switzerland, Paris. There is actually, they don't care about what they're eating. Everything is just, even the salad bar. Like I went out for dinner several times, and the salad bar plates were even this little. You just ate less of everything. There was never mounds of food on a plate ever. And that's just how we lived for a year. And it was just so refreshing. I'll be 100% honest. Walking through a restaurant and ordering whatever I wanted, knowing I was going to enjoy it. You are more mindful. You are less guilty. You feel comfortable after you eat your food, but you never left feeling overfull, and you don't feel guilty. And it was a good learning experience. I came back after living in Europe for a year, and my approach was different. And then I came home and I met Neil, and I had a much healthier outlook on food, actually being in Europe for that year. He was the exact opposite of me. Not opposite. He's a foodie. I'm a foodie, but he's a big guy. He's almost 6'4". He's definitely, over 200 pounds. He loves his food, and he wants to be healthy and fit, but he does not care at all about what he looks like. I mean, he does, but he doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He works out because he knows it's important for his mental wellness more than anything. And so we kind of had to meet in the middle, right? Like, I was like this trainer who was like super into fitness and getting in my lifts, and he was this busy professional, young professional. He's 6 years younger than me, and was just like, yeah, this lifestyle isn't for me. But eventually, as we started dating and, eventually lived together, we definitely had to come to some kind of common ground, and we helped each other. I helped him with more of his wellness, and he helped me even more so about learning the balance and being able to live a little bit more of a less disciplined life. And there were moments where there was probably nights of too much alcohol. Does not happen when we first started dating. Definitely put on more weight, but I never, ever, ever stopped my lifts, because what I realized through over the last 10 years, this is really a lot to do with social media and following the people and the coaches who you are like-minded to. And they share their beliefs and their posts and their data and their journals, and you dive more into it. So it just opens your world up to more like-minded people who your philosophy is aligned with. And through the last 10 years, with being exposed to more of that and being more open-minded to learning more, and also watching my body change over the last 10 years, I would have to say that this approach has given me the most success long-term for not only me, but for my clients. And so opening my life up to social media and like connecting with like-minded trainers and learning together through research and through data learning and through just experiences, I have to say that I now feel so much more confident in that when I do help people, that they're absolutely going to get results. They're going to take a lot longer than they did 30 years ago with my approach, but they're going to get the results that are sustainable. And that is refreshing for everyone. I always say, my approach is less is more. We're way busier than we've ever been. As you get older, there's more responsibilities. I don't have children, so I can't even imagine what mothers and fathers, how busy their life is with children. But no one has the time when you're in university or just starting your career to get to the gym 5, 6, 7 days a week. We just do not have the time. Nor do I. The last year and a half have been the busiest 2 years of my life. And obviously we're going through some crazy times right now. And we've had to learn to be a little less hard on ourselves and a little more soft on the approach to what we can do mentally and physically. And so I have to say, the last 10 years, but the last year, I am in the best shape of my life. I'm the most comfortable in my skin today. And I think that comes with age. Obviously, we become more comfortable as we get older. But I embrace who I am as a person. And I have to say the 30 years of all my experiences has taught me a ton. And what has happened over the last 30 years also, not just, learning about certain foods and then not being enemies, and then the portion control and missing breakfast isn't going to ruin your metabolism. Consistent meals isn't going to ruin your metabolism. And I will get into more of why I've learned these things as the episodes progress. But once I learned that you actually can eat whatever you want. There's no such thing as a bad food or a good food. It's just a higher calorie food. And then once we learn that we actually don't need to get to the gym more than 3 or 4 times a week, and we don't actually need to spend 2 hours in the gym. I don't go to the gym anymore for a social aspect. I go to the basement of my home by myself with no social activity. I walk in there and I get it done. It is still my happy place, but it's definitely not Talisman Center. And I do it because I know that it's going to give me more longevity and a better future in terms of independence as I get older. I love to work out. I love to mountain bike. I love to hike. I can't run anymore. Things happen, but I do love to get my 10,000 steps in. And I want to be able to have the body to do those things now. And every single year I feel less pain. Of course, there's little injuries, fall off my bike, yesterday I fell down the hill trying to chase Tempest from eating poop. Those kinds of injuries happen where I'm limping for a couple of days. But in general, the less commitment I've made to getting grueling, intense workouts in, sweating like a complete lunatic, the more I've let go of that, the more my body has given me permission to my body is giving me permission to embrace the overall longevity. No. What it has done over the last 30 years is it has given me a chance to really feel like I don't have to spend the hours I used to get the dream body that I love, but to also feel like I'm getting younger, literally. So, and that's just through my experiences of the last 10 years. I ran out of time to get to the gym. I didn't have access to the time that I had. I needed to be efficient. I hated the way I felt through the hard, intense cardio sessions. I didn't like how I felt. My back hurt, my knees hurt. My massage therapist said if I continued to put my body through this type of intensity, I was going to need a replacement by the time I was 50. That scared the shit out of me. So I decided maybe I should just find a hill and walk, get the steps in through constant movement throughout the day. I used to literally kill myself 2 straight hours of cardio or teach spin or teach the fitness class that was high reps, low weight classes. And literally after that 2-hour session each day, I would be sitting on my bum. Well, I wouldn't be because I would be training. But when I went back onto, when I trained and went online, I used to just feel like that was enough. But what I realized is that constant movement throughout the day makes a bigger impact on the way my body responds. So I walk a couple thousand steps in the morning. I get some work done. I get a lift in, only 3 a week now. And then I get a couple more 1,000 steps in after lunch. And then I get another couple more after dinner. I stand at my laptop as most as I can. I concentrate on mindful eating. So I eat chocolate every single day. I eat a cookie every single day. I drink wine every single week. But I always am taking into account portion control. But I never, ever, ever deprive myself anymore of anything that I want. Now, of course, we're going to have allergies. Of course, there's going to be things that don't agree with us. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is if you are avoiding certain types of food because someone or something or some ad has told you that you are going to get fat to eat those things, you absolutely need to stop doing that now. Because what happens, and this happened to me when I was competing, is that if you go prolonged periods of time with not incorporating certain types of food like dairy into your life, eventually you might want to. There's going to be a case where you just want to have that ice cream that's not dairy free, or there isn't a dairy free option, and you have it. And your body definitely will not be able to handle it. So my message to you is, don't stop eating the foods that you love just because you think they're going to make you fat. No type of food is going to make you fat. Too much of it? Absolutely. But still enjoy the things that make you happy. Because those small little cherishes, like the little piece of chocolate I put in my coffee, it literally brings me happiness each and every day. It's just those little things. And I watch the chocolate raise to the top of the coffee. And when I take a sip, I know that I'm getting, it is just I know it sounds ridiculous, but it just makes me happy. And so a lot of times we have to test what works, what doesn't work. Not everything that works for me is going to work for you as well. But what my biggest thing that I want to get through this episode is that less is more. Discipline is required to get the physique that you want, but no deprivation ever needs to exist. You need to lift weights. Absolutely. Do you need to do it every day? No. 3 times a week is usually what I recommend for 45 minutes, because who has more time than that? Warm up and cool down would also be included in the 45 minutes. And then just constant movement. If you're someone that doesn't like cardio, guess what? You do not have to do crazy cardio every single day to get results. You do not need to be sweating profusely and dying every single day. A couple times a week to get hypoxic, absolutely. You definitely need to condition your heart and lungs 110%. But that's what you're doing. You are conditioning your heart and your lungs, and you're getting the best endorphins when you do those things. So I'm never going to tell you not to do that stuff, but it is not required. I haven't run in years. I haven't taught spin in years. I lift. That is the priority for me, 3 times a week. And I have to say, for 47, I'm pretty happy. I of how I look, of course, but more importantly, how I feel, how I move my body, how I'm able to move my body. And it really is the balanced lifestyle that I've been able to achieve. So I really wanted to, hopefully through this episode, first one, bring some experiences, and through my experiences, what I've learned. I hope that it got through. I see that I'm going past my time, so we'll leave it at that. Episode 2 will be coming soon. It's, again, how I evolved as a trainer. It's a good one. So stay tuned for that one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening, and we will chat soon.